Hi, welcome back. It's 2025. We have such a great year ahead. I do believe that. I really do believe that we get to choose if this year is going to be one that serves us or not. There's a lot going on in the world. There is a lot that can steal and rob our energy and our attention. But I am not here to help you solve the world's problems. I'm here to help you create the life that you want to be living and control the things that you can control. And I have not had any episodes for a couple of months. If you listened in October, I only dropped 2 episodes this fall. One was a really fun interview with Lexia. I hope that you guys listened to that and enjoyed it because she's amazing and that conversation was so valuable. And I gave an update on my life of why I released episodes throughout the summer and then just stopped. And so you can go back and listen if you want the nitty-gritty details on my life. The bullet points were a health diagnosis. I was diagnosed with stage 4 endometriosis and had to really step into some radical self-care and change how much time I spent taking care of myself. We had multiple hurricanes come through our area. My husband spent 10 weeks in the fall out of the country, and I was solo parenting. And also, he is my podcast editor and producer. That does play a significant role. And all of those things impacted my ability to show up here. But what I want to talk to you guys about is last year as a whole, it dealt a lot of unexpected curveballs that I didn't know were coming. Everything I just listed to you guys, January of 2024, it was not on the radar. I released my book last December. My thought process was that last year was going to be focused on promoting my book and doing a whole bunch of publicity around that and pitching myself to get on different podcasts and spreading the word and doing a lot more speaking engagements and just really leaning on that exposure. But all that stuff takes a lot of time, and I didn't know that these other things were going to come on my plate, and I just gave them the attention that they needed. And I let some of those I just reshifted my priorities, my focus, and my goals. But what was fascinating was, as I've closed out 2024 and I'm looking at what occurred in my business and in my personal life, my business grew by 46%, but I worked fewer hours than I had the last 2 years before. I also did a lot more stuff for myself. I increased my self-care. I increased my joy. I don't think that I don't remember if I shared with you guys on the previous episode that I joined a synchronized swimming team, and that has been so much fun. So it was really fascinating to me of, wow, I worked less, yet my business grew by 46%. And so as we're moving into 2025 and looking at this year ahead, I thought that the first episode for season 3 to kick off would be great to talk about some of those misconceptions about time and energy and share with you what I believe were the differentiating factors that allowed my business to expand and my joy and my pleasure while I worked fewer hours. So I wrote down 5 notes, 5 different bullet point things that I believe were the difference makers. One is something called the Pareto Principle. So you can look this up. The Pareto Principle is this idea that roughly 80% of consequences come from 20% of causes. So in other words, a smaller percentage of causes have an outsized effect. Think about this like it's not that different than that saying you've probably heard in a group dynamic where they say 20% of the people do 80% of the work. It's kind of that idea. But in your life, the things that you're doing also have that effect. That 80-20 rule that might apply to some organization that you're part of, it can also apply to your life. I looked at that principle in my own life to determine what delivers the results I want in my life. That includes not only the growth of my business, right, where leads come from and new clients come from, but also what is helping me achieve the goals for our family, for all the other spokes in my life, my physical health, my friendships, our financial goals, my marriage. What are the things that I am doing that are delivering the biggest impact? And so if 20% of the results in my life are coming, or 80% of the results of things in my life are coming from 20% of the things that I'm doing, I started narrowing down what I was willing to give my time, energy, and attention to. Because I needed to scale back, I had to evaluate what is the highest and best use of my time, energy, and attention. There are things I could have spent more time doing that may or may not have delivered results, but they would not have delivered the results at the same high impact level as other options that I had. And so I think that's the first thing that I did, was I scaled back. In some practical examples of like give me an example, Sophia, what are you talking about here? For me, that's part of why there weren't a lot of podcast episodes dropped. I enjoy this. I really enjoy recording this podcast. I have people who send me text messages or run into me in public or reach out to me through Instagram, and they tell me how much they love listening to this podcast. I love doing it, and I know there are people who love listening to it, but the reality is it may be different in the future, but currently it is not a significant income generator. It's not where my business is growing or my leads are coming from. It's just something that I enjoy doing. It makes me so happy to share the things that are making a difference in my life and in my clients' life and allow other people to get access to those for free. It's part of my contribution. I really enjoy this. And I do believe that one day it will be a significant impact in my business. But currently, mathematically speaking, it's not. And another place that can be a real big time suck is social media. I realized that it takes a lot of effort to create really good content. I even invested a lot of money last year in the first half of the year. I went through 3 different administrative virtual assistants until I found the right person to work with. And we were working on pumping out content. And it's actually, even having someone to help me, it was still a massive chunk of my to-do list for the week to come up with those ideas, conceptualize them, put them to paper, word them in a way so that the podcast episode could tie into the blog, which could tie into the social. And I needed to provide all that content to her in advance, right, so that she could produce the work. And it became a huge burden and a huge chunk of my time each week. And again, maybe one day it would deliver a great funnel system and grow my business and produce more leads. But last year, that wasn't where the growth was coming from. And so when I needed to scale back, I let go of those things that were a majority of my to-do list with a small impact on my results. And I've had a few clients come from this way, and I've had my list grow, my email list grow a little bit from this podcast, but it's not where the majority comes from. So that's an example of the Pareto Principle. Where is the highest impact coming from, and how can I do more of what delivers high impact and do less of what is not? The next thing that I do believe helped me have the result of making more, my business growing and working less hours, is another principle called Parkinson's law. So if you haven't heard of Parkinson's law, it's this idea that work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. Basically what that means is things will take as long as you allow them to take. So if I give myself an hour to prepare for my podcast, it'll take me an hour to prepare for it. If I give myself 3 hours, it'll take me 3 hours. If I give myself 15 minutes, then I'm going to spend 15 minutes preparing. So how long do I want to prepare? How much time do I want to set aside on the calendar? And what I allow is how long it will take. If I have all day to create an email I'm going to spend, I'll spend all day on it, looking for more graphics, finding better ways to say it, editing it over a million times. I could spend all day on an email, or I could say, I've got 20 minutes to push this sucker out. I'm going to do the best that I can, check it for some typos, and we're moving on with our lives. If I give myself 20 minutes, it'll take 20 minutes. It'd probably be shorter. I have blogs and emails in the past that were like 3,000 words. I spent massive amounts of time on them. And then I've had other ones that actually the only time I went viral was a blog I literally spent about 20 minutes on it. I only had a small amount of time, so I just had to just jot the idea and the story down that was right on the tip of my tongue, pumped it out, hit send, moved on, and it went viral. And it's like, I have literally spent days preparing and putting lots of work into some content. And then the content that I just went with my gut and just spoke from the heart and then hit send had the biggest impact. So if we want to overthink something, we can. And so things take as long as you allow them to take. And that's the Parkinson's law. When I apply that to my business, that's also how I was able to grow my business and work fewer hours, because I decided how long I was willing to set aside time for a specific task, and I fit it in. And only the most important things got done. And if I ran out of time, I ran out of time. It rolled over to the next week, it rolled over to the next day, but I wasn't going to work myself into the ground or get into burnout. This was the time I allotted, and so I had to make it work. So if it was really important, I figured out how to make it work in the window that I allowed it to take up in my life. The third thing that I believe contributed to last year's success is radical self-care. Radical self-care. Prior to the diagnosis I got last year, I would have told you that my self-care was really high, maybe like a 9 out of 10 spoke on my wheel. And it wasn't until I was faced with, being told that there was a bunch of inflammation in my body and having to ask myself, how did that get there? I felt before that, I genuinely believed I had a fantastic work-life balance and took really good care of myself. But I was living the 80-20 lifestyle. And so 20% of the time I didn't. I was giving myself lots of grace, lots of pass, lots of excuses, but I was doing a really good job at 80% of the time. And I was okay with that. That was enough for me, and I was satisfied. This diagnosis led me to be like, no, we got to take this radical. We're not going to do the excuses and the passes. We're going to level up. And my self-care became to the point that it was uncomfortable. And again, it's been said a million times before. If you're not feeling uncomfortable, you're probably not growing. And my discomfort was in little things like the pelvic floor therapist takes me, because of traffic, an hour to get to. So taking a 3-hour chunk of my calendar to say, I'm going to give myself time to drive there through all the traffic. It should only be 30 minutes away. It's because the traffic is an hour. I have to give myself an hour. So it's 3 hours to drive there, do the appointment, drive home, and give myself permission to take that time out of my week. That was hard for me. Giving myself time to chop all the ingredients for my salad and say, I'm going to stand here and spend a whole hour of my Sunday night chopping everything that I need to have a healthy lunch for this week. Those kind of things, I was just wanting to be convenient or bypass. But the radical self-care, I am going to prioritize taking care of myself first and make the rest of my life fit around it. It made all the pieces have to shift and move around and look different. But then I felt better and I had more energy. The various things that I teach, right? When you take care of yourself, you're going to have more energy. You're going to feel better, produce better results. And it's so hard to wrap around this for so many of my clients that it's better to, I could work an 8-hour day, or I could take an hour to get some great exercise in and increase my energy, and maybe do a little bit of some rest and relaxation. So maybe take 2 hours. So I can add 2 hours to take care of myself with some pleasure, rest, and maybe some movement. And then that 8-hour workday, you could probably get done in 5. So it's not even like I took 2 hours for myself and I can still get all done in 6. A lot of times the brain, it works when it is rested. And when you have exercise and move your body, and the chemicals in your brain, they move differently. Like, all that stuff has an impact. You can get more done in a smaller amount of time. Now, obviously, some industries this doesn't work for. Like, I have several clients who are attorneys. Their paychecks are greatly impacted by billable hours, right? So you might be in an industry like that, or even with my industry, like, if I am working with a client an hour a week or 30 minutes a week, I'm still going to spend an hour with them or 30 minutes with them. But there are things outside of that where I can increase my efficiency and my productivity. And so if you are in an industry where your time is impacted by your ability to get projects done, and whether it's creativity or your brain power or ideation, you can get more done in a smaller amount of time if you're taking care of yourself. Okay. This flows into the fourth thing, which was, again, that word radical. And I'm saying the word radical, the sentence is radical respect of my time. But I'm saying radical changes, because to just say I respected my time is like, okay, yeah, we lived by the favorite week concept and, had boundaries, whatever. The radical, saying that in front of the phrase, it demonstrates to you guys, it sends the message that it was radical because it was to the point of discomfort. It felt extreme. But I respected my time at a radical level. There was not, I can't think of any time last year, and I'm sure if I really sat, I'd come up with something. But for the most part, I can't think of any example where I allowed anyone else's priorities, agenda, whatever, to creep into my life. I'm not saying I never wasted time. Don't get me wrong. I am not. Guys, I have ADHD. There were plenty of sit pits and getting distracted and wasting my time on something that wasn't helpful. So I am not saying that I had a perfect year with how I managed my time. I always will have room to grow in this area. But I had a radical respect of my time, and I didn't allow other people to get it. My boundaries and my walls, they were so high, but not in an unhealthy way. I still did fun things with friends that I wanted to do, not that I felt obligated to do. Maybe that's it. I eliminated all of this stuff you have to do out of obligation, or the stuff that are other, where you get shitted on. I did not have the bandwidth for it, so it was all eliminated. And I've gotten better and better over the years at that, and I've shared about it before on this podcast. But last year, it was radical. I said, I had to say no to a lot of people who I even love, some of my closest friends. Let's grab coffee. Let's grab lunch. There's not a window. It was you got to come do it with me and my kids. Evening, weekend, come over, hang out. I had friends that just came over to watch, when the new Queer Eye season dropped. I had a friend over, and what else did she come over to watch with me? I don't remember, a few things, but I had a girlfriend who would just come over to my house and watch shows with me after the kids went to bed. And I had another girlfriend who came and hung out and let our kids play while she just sat in my kitchen and talked to me while I deep cleaned. Like I'm just cleaning my kitchen and we're chatting. And, it's not that I didn't allow any time with people that I love. It had to be spent in a way that was going to feel good to me. Okay. And the last one, number 5, the thing that I did that I genuinely feel had a major impact on why I grew last year was I spent the whole year operating at a much higher level of joy. I do think the 2 biggest contributing factors to that, one was that the year before was such a deep and heavy personal growth year. I did a lot of healing work around, and I did work with a therapist, and I worked with my mentor and coach who does a lot of like hypnotherapy work and trauma brain rewiring stuff. That was the year before, super heavy in the healing, work. So there wasn't very many times that I was like triggered or stressed or spiraling over something somebody else somewhere was doing. Like I healed all that. So other people's actions were their actions. I was just not bothered by choices other people were making in their life, even if they were very adjacent to me. I just wasn't. So I was not attached to other people's words and choices in lives. So I think that definitely increased my joy. But the other one was, and I don't remember if I shared this with you guys or not. I am going to do a whole episode on it coming up. But last year, I developed a habit of reading a couple of smut books per week, whether through audio or actually like reading it on my Kindle or my Kindle app on my phone. But I ended up reading 112 smut books from February through the end of the year. So in a 10 and a half month period of time, I read 112 books. And maybe 5 of those were business or personal growth related, but over 100 of them were just romance novels and genuinely made my life better. Because life is really hard right now, guys, right? There's a lot of really serious stuff happening all around us. You can get sucked into the news. You can get sucked into the negativity. You can get sucked into this stuff that's just really, 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 really shitty. And I can only control what I can control. And so while getting ready in the morning, while washing dishes, while laying in my bed at 9 o'clock at night, chilling, I would have a fun book just for pleasure in my ears. And it helps to just basically just rom-coms, but it puts you with like, it's all happy endings. Don't we need more happy endings right now? And it made me smile and it made me have warm fuzzies. And it was just, my mind wasn't fixated on all these things that I can't control. And for the 15 years before that, I read a million self-help books, and I still love them. Don't get me wrong. I read multiple books last year that were great for growth. And I'm glad that I read them. But it used to be all I would read. So basically my thoughts were on my life, events in the world, and constantly trying to learn and grow and improve. And I think last year I just said, I think I know enough that I can build a successful business and I can have a happy life with my family and my kids. And I think I've done enough learning and growing and expanding that I can have more time to chill. And I'm not saying that I will not keep growing. Are you guys kidding me right now? Like, I'm addicted to growth. That's not going away. I just don't have to be obsessively infatuated with always having to expand all of the time. Like, there's a little bit of a chill factor to just say, I'm good. Let's just read some mindless literature that's going to make me laugh. And I did 100 times over. And when I make that a bullet point of one of the reasons why I do believe my business grew, because I moved through the world lighter. I moved through the world happier. And when there's all of this negativity and really hard shit going on, I didn't read those books for any personal growth reason. I did it to just, and I have a whole episode coming up about why I did it and how it came into my life. So just tune in for that, for more of that, for that information. But I wasn't trying to do it for any growth reasons. And what happened was I became happier and more relaxed, and people are attracted to that. I think it is attractive to be in the presence of somebody who feels light, who feels joyful, who doesn't feel heavy. And I spent like my whole adulthood being told I was like really serious and intense. And don't get me wrong, guys, I will still go deep if you want to go deep. And I am still a very intense person. I'm not changing. But it's kind of nice to be the person that's the breath of fresh air in the room after like a whole life of being the person who's like taken this deep. And yeah, and so I do think it rolled over into part of why my business grew, because I think people want to be around somebody like that. And so it's easier to attract a new client or for someone to refer you, because they'll be like, oh my God, you're just going to love being around her. And that I wasn't trying to do that when I made the choice to read these books, right? But it was like a byproduct. And so I wrote, those are the 5 things that I think led to 2024. As I wrap up this episode, I just want to share with you guys that I've got some cool stuff coming. So I have one interview already lined up with this badass woman I cannot wait to introduce you guys to. So stay tuned. I'm not going to like announce what it is or about or whatever, but she's so freaking cool. And I'm really excited to introduce you guys to her. So I've got that lined up. And then also upcoming is a 4-part series. I'm going to bring Brandon on, my husband. And we're going to talk about some of the behind the scenes things that I want you guys to hear. You hear from me all the time, but I want you guys to hear from him and his perspective of a lot of the things that have led to not just growth, but even things that my clients don't even realize that they're learning from him, because all the things that he has taught me that have ended up being the things I teach my clients. And so it's, I think they're going to be fun episodes. I have 4 different topics currently planned, and I'll bring him back for more. If slide into my DMs, if listening to them, you think of something else you want to talk to Brandon about, he's cool and chill. He'll come on whenever I ask him to. And you guys can continue to get his perspective on anything that you want. And yeah, that's all I have for today. That's all I have. If you have not already, make sure that you've downloaded the app, the Favorite Self app, which has free resources to guide yourself through your favorite wheel assessment or your favorite life wheel assessment, or you can learn about the favorite week concept. There's guided meditations. Lots of great tools are on there for you. And in addition to that, you can click the link below to buy the Unleash Your Favorite Self book and companion journal that will help you coach yourself. Like a lot of the work that I do with my clients as a life coach, diving into all 10 spokes, you can learn a lot of those principles and ideas and perspectives and then make those changes yourself. It's really great if you want to DIY your own coaching experience. That's what that book is for. And as always, you can, if you do want to talk to me one-on-one and dive into what may be going on in your life, then book a roadmap session and let's do a one-on-one call. That's what I have for you guys this week. I am so excited to continue to journey with you through this year and what is to come, and I'll be back next week. Bye.